At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu. At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu. At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
It was totally my internet crash, but we're back on the air now with Alan G. Parker, and he's telling us about who killed Nancy. We left off, you were talking about how Sid Vicious still looked good on the T-shirts.
Well, I always say Sid was the James Dean of his own generation, Che Guevara, if you like, of his own generation. In so much as that, what's the line? Live fast, die young, and leave a good-looking corpse. And you still sell good T-shirts years later. Sid hooked up with this American girl, Nancy Spungeon. She was a bit of a groupie. She'd worked as a prostitute. She'd also worked as a stripper. And she was literally very much into injecting heroin. And he was already, involved in the drug scene before they met. So it sort of continued from there, and they got involved with each other. When the pistol split, which was in the early part of 1978, they really had nowhere to go. The other guys who'd been in the band had talent and had record deals and this kind of thing. Sid was a bit of a sort of stranger to all that. He'd just been he'd been almost like the gimmick in the band. And so they ended up drifting further and further into their own rather dark and rather depressing world, and including, heroin and this and the other. And ultimately, in October 1978, Nancy Spungeon died in the Chelsea Hotel in New York City, stabbed once in the abdomen, bled to death over a 2-hour period. And Sid was arrested. He was later released on bail via the record company. He had a sort of fairly bizarre Christmas where he was in and out of Rikers Island prison. He was released on bail for a second time in early February pending a court case. And he never made it to court because he was supposed to go to court on the 3rd of February, and he died of a heroin overdose on the 2nd of February. So theirs was not a particularly fabulous story, really. I mean, Sid was dead at 21 and Nancy was dead at 20.
Tragic. What were the circumstances of her death that night? Like, how did if she took 2 hours to bleed out, how did they discover the body and all that?
The body was found under the sink in the bathroom of room 100 in the Chelsea Hotel, and there was a hunting knife still sticking out of her. She'd been stabbed once in the abdomen, and she literally had bled out, which is one of the reasons that certain policemen did not believe Sid did it, because Sid had been out cold on this cocktail of drugs on the bed in the other room for what the local hospital later found was about a 7-hour period. And so ultimately, he more than likely was not the guy that did it, was the first thought. And then you started finding that during the night, because their hotel bedroom was a bit like Holton House, there were various other junkies and drug dealers and rock and roll musicians calling on them at various times of the night. Also, the thing that I don't think anyone had looked into until we got involved was that the record label in England had recently paid them a large sum of money in cash because they had no bank account. And that money had been in the bottom drawer of the bedroom, and the next morning the money was also gone. So not only did Sid wake up not knowing what the hell had happened, with Nancy dead under the sink, but the money, which was a fairly substantial amount of money from a bit of gigging he'd been doing in New York on the punk scene, and the money their label had given them, was also completely missing.
So Sid woke up and he discovered the body?
Yes, he was the first person to find the body, yeah.
And he called the police?
he called the police. He originally called an ambulance, and then he called the police straight afterwards. And because of who he was, he'd been arrested a couple of times in New York for drug possession, and he had this really sort of, you can imagine, you're hardly going to have a fantastic image with the name like Sid Vicious.
Yeah.
So the ambulance was the first thing he called, but the police arrived before the ambulance did, and they just instantly took one look at the room and arrested him. And went into the process of finding out who did it. It was only, I think, further down the line that they started to believe that perhaps, or some of them, not all of them, but some of the policemen on the case started to believe that maybe Sid didn't, because there were other people that had been in the room, and there was this vast sum of money. I think about $25,000-$30,000 had gone missing overnight.
Now, the murder weapon, was this a weapon that was owned by that home? Was it owned by Sid or Nancy? Was it in that home before?
Yes, it had been co-owned by Sid and Nancy. It was a Jaguar K11 hunting knife, which they're quite big knives. I mean, I would say with the blade folds into the handle, but with the blade open from the handle, probably about 10 or 11 inches long.
And that was a knife that they owned?
They'd owned it for some time. They collected knives and studied belts and bullet belts and all kinds of punk rock paraphernalia,
Okay, and what about, there must have been, did Sid have blood on his clothing? Any kind of, indications like that?
Whatsoever, no.
Really?
All these clothes were forensically examined, and there wasn't any blood, any of Nancy's blood anywhere near him.
Really? Then what about, because, in the papers at the time, it was like, this was done deal. Sid Vicious killed Nancy, yeah.
As I say, I think the problem was that if he'd been called, let's say Simon Price, and apologies for any Simon Prices listening, who, maybe a lawyer or a dentist or something really nice. The reality, I suppose, is it's a bit difficult trying to get a fair rap in the world's press if your name is Sid Vicious, isn't it? It's kind of, I guess it's not the easiest way to get a fair rap with a name like Sid Vicious. And I think what the press did, as they've been good at doing for the last 40 years anyway, 40 or 50 years, is they put 2 and 2 together and made 6. I just thought this is what it must be because that's what his name is, Oddly enough, when the bail money was raised for Sid to get him out on bail, his manager, Malcolm McLaren, flew to New York and got involved with that. The police also were involved via this rather expensive lawyer called James Merberg. And I had wondered for years when I was doing my research, I thought, I wonder who could afford to hire James Merberg and pay the $50,000 bail. So I presumed it was the record label because, the Pistols were earning a lot of money for Virgin Records at that time, Richard Branson's label. I did some digging and I managed to get through to a friend of Richard Branson's who ultimately asked a few questions to Richard for me. And I said, got to be honest about this. I presume it's you that paid the bail money and also hired James Merberg. He said, no. He said, I'm okay to tell you now because it's 30 years ago. He said, but at the time he didn't want his name mentioning in the press anywhere. But the guy who stood bail money and also hired James Merberg was Mick Jagger. Really? Because Mick Jagger thought that Sid had been treated like a scapegoat because of his nickname.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, what about because I'm sure you interviewed a lot of their friends and associates, the hangers-on, and the local characters and neighbors and stuff like that. What was gossip? What was the rumors going on?
Rumor among most of the punk rock fraternity and most of the rock and roll fraternity was that they thought they were so in love that they couldn't see Sid stabbing Nancy to death, or even once. I spoke to a few guys who lived quite close by them in Maida Vale who were very good friends of theirs, some of whom now are very respected people in the entertainment industry in England. And I said to them, what did you think when you first got the news from America that Nancy was dead? And they said, we always thought Nancy would die early because she almost had a death wish. She almost said to people she would probably die early. But we never thought Sid would do it. Because one of my closer friends who knew Sid rather well said to me, to be honest, and he said, the truth of the matter is quite simple. He said, without Nancy, Sid couldn't really cope. Sid just found the world too big and dark a place. And she was almost like his guide. So why would you take away the one person who's propping your life up?
And also, too, if it was a crime of passion, you're kind of packing, you call the ambulance right away. You don't go to sleep, and pass out and call them up 7 hours later, 2 hours later. And that's very interesting. Now,
Malcolm McLaren said to me, the Pistols manager, because Malcolm and I were good friends before his death, and Malcolm said to me, this may be too romantic a way of putting it. He said, but the reality, as far as I'm concerned, is they were a modern-day Romeo and Juliet. Which could well be that could well be the best analogy of it that there is, looking into what happened later, because in the next few months that Sid survived, Nancy, and we're only talking from October 78 to February 79, so what, 4 or 5 months? Everyone who knew him said that the only thing he was talking about was dying and being with Nancy. He tried to commit suicide once before he went back into prison. He tried to commit suicide again in prison, and then he overdosed the minute that he got released the second time.
And you believe the overdose wasn't...
I think once she was dead, I think he did not want to be on this planet anymore,
And so you believe that the overdose was intentional?
I believe it was, yeah, definitely. Because
I earned my degree online at Arizona State University. I chose to get my degree at ASU because I knew that I'd get a quality education, they were recognized for excellence, and that I would be prepared for the workforce upon graduating. To be associated with ASU, both as a student and alum, it makes me extremely proud, and having experienced the program, I know now that I'm set up for success. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
At the time, in late 78, the heroin on the streets in New York had been quite bad.
Right.
It had been chopped up with all kinds of stuff and really quite impure. But over Christmas, there was a lot of major rock and roll bands used to tour in New York and play in New York in the early part of 79. So somebody must have known they'd be bringing big money with them, and a lot of them would want to buy the more pure end of the drugs, if you like, So by January, February 1979, I did some digging again with the police department for my book and then ultimately for the film. And it was said that the heroin on the streets in New York by late January 79 was probably the most pure it had been in about 40 years. It was about 97% pure. Because they were expecting big customers through the city in the next couple of months, and they presumed the best thing to do is get it as pure as possible. So I think with that knowledge, Sid probably just took as big a dose as possible, knowing full well he wouldn't wake up.
And you don't think there's a chance that perhaps he was murdered too? He was given a hot shot.
Well, I mean, there are people who believe that. I think Sid had been doing heroin too long to realise that to have realised that, if the heroin was now suddenly that pure in a matter of weeks, then maybe more likely that, because he had OD'd earlier in the day on the 2nd of February, that they walked him around a wee bit, and he sat chatting with people, and apparently he then started getting quite excited about some of the things Malcolm had been telling him about, potentially playing Las Vegas and getting bail and then getting released and getting out guilty verdict to maybe go home and make a new album. And he got quite excited about all that. And then apparently he went to bed later in the evening, and that's when he took the second shot. And it was the second shot that killed him.
Now, what about when you do this kind of people, like the Chelsea Hotel, especially at that time, street people and drug dealers and drug addicts? If someone who was associated with them suddenly had a big wad of cash a couple of days later, this would be known to the group. Was there anybody a suspect other than Sid?
There was other people that were on file. There was one of the detectives told me that they were looking to interview 6 people. But because, of course, Sid died so soon while the preparation was still being made for the trial, I know for a fact, because the police told me face-to-face, that those 6 people weren't even pulled in for questioning, much less interviewed. So I think the whole thing just happened a bit too quickly. Now, I later checked with my own uncle, who was a retired detective in England, and I said, if you had a murder case that in October and you knew you were going to trial early New Year, how fast would you interview potential suspects? And my uncle said, again, depends completely on the situation. He said, but maybe not until February or March. He said, because normally you get all your ducks in a row and then you do your interview,
And what about like his family? I know you did the book with his mother, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. Well, he didn't know his father. His father disappeared when he was about 4 or 5 years old, and even to this day, in 2018, none of us who've been involved with Sid's legacy or Sid's estate or background have any clue whether his father is still alive or dead. We don't know that. We presume he's probably dead, but we don't know that. I mean, he could still be alive and be in his late 70s, early 80s. So that's something. But yeah, Sid's mother contacted me when I was working for the UK Music Press and asked me, she'd read an article that I'd written about the Sex Pistols, and she thought my writing was good, and she basically said, would you be interested in writing a book on my son? And that's how that came about. Yeah.
And what about Nancy's family?
I've only ever spoken to Nancy's family on a telephone twice. Once to her sister, very, very briefly, maybe 10 words, and once to her mother, and maybe for no more than 5 or 10 minutes. And basically that's that. I mean, I read the book. Her mother wrote an incredibly good book called And I Don't Want to Live This Life by Deborah Spungeon. And it's a great book, it's right, but I would definitely recommend it to anybody that wants to read that kind of sort of tragic true story. And the reality is, yeah, that was it. They didn't really get too involved in my book, and me and Anne didn't get too involved in their book, so they're two very separate stories about different sides of the relationship,
And Spungeon, she's passed since now, right? She's dead now.
I think she is, yes. I don't know, but I know Anne Besley, Sid's mother, is dead. She died in 96. Deborah Spungeon, I believe, is now gone. So, yeah, I think there's very few people from the families. I know from Sid's family there's only one cousin left alive now. Wow. And that's out of various uncles and relations and, whatever it may be. But there's just one cousin left alive now in Sid's family, and he lives in the United Kingdom.
Did Nancy have a sister that was also in New York that was around the same scene?
Nancy had a sister and a brother, but you see, Nancy was from a very respectable Jewish American upper-class family. She was just the wild child who went off the rails. So what you have to understand is, yes, Nancy did have siblings, but the siblings did remarkably better than Nancy. I mean, her brother was a lawyer on Wall Street the last time I knew anything about it, and her sister is a television chef in New York.
Really? Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Now,
she rather ironically, this was a couple of friends of mine who found this almost too funny for words, but rather ironically, Nancy's sister put out a cookbook a few years ago, and on the cover she's dressed head to toe in chef's white, but she's also carrying a very big carving knife. I don't know if she saw the irony in that. I have no idea at all, but we certainly did. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Now with the NYPD, they have this listed as a cold case or a closed case?
It is listed now as a closed case.
Closed case.
But that's only really been since our movie. Since the movie came out, it has now become 100% closed case. But for a while before the movie, there are certain documents from the time where it was listed as a cold case. Yeah.
Do you believe that your movie influenced them to close case?
I was the only thing I've been told by NYPD, and this was around the time, is that one of the serving officers, this would have been in 2008, 2009, rang me and we had a short conversation. He basically said to me, Alan, I think you've done as much as possible to solve a case that really was as cold as the grave. He said, so all future documents will be stamped with the words cold case. Closed case. Yeah. So you never do know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know about that. My theory is a much more simple one. It almost is that, kind of it is what it is, that this guy's life was not a particularly wonderful life. And, we just happened to be in a position where I was given more information perhaps than most other journalists at the time. And so as far as I see it is, if I managed to do something for him that maybe nobody else did, then I think he deserved at least that much given everything he'd been through,
Okay, we can find this all in the book, Who Killed Nancy? And basically, to sum it up, you think that they were associating with a lot of drug dealers and street people and stuff like that, staying at the Chelsea Hotel, which is basically one step above homeless at the time. It was a real street type motel.
Oh, I mean,
yeah. I would be nervous walking.
I mean, I must say that things are better now at Chelsea than they used to be. I mean, for the sake of anybody who's listening to this and may want to, travel to New York and is looking for a nice, clean, respectable, mid-price hotel, then please don't run away from the Chelsea just down to what me and Ed say on this program tonight. Because has come on leaps and bounds in the last 35, 40 years completely. So, don't be put off by what gets said on this show tonight, because that would not be the Chelsea. The Chelsea we're talking about is not the Chelsea that exists now.
Well, even all these areas, like even the Bowery and Bleecker down there, which at the time was like a Skid Row. Now today they got the Starbucks and the Gap down there. It's a whole different world,
completely.
Man.
I mean, I remember the first time I went to New York, and the meatpacking district down the bottom end of Greenwich Village was almost a no-go area. The people who owned the hotel I stayed in said, don't go down there after dark. And as you say now, it's got Vivian Westwood and Vans trainer shops, so...
Yeah, the real estate's so expensive.
Remarkably.
Yeah, real estate's so expensive in Manhattan now. That every little square inch, no matter what it once was, today is now prime real estate. So is there anything that we left out in the Sid and Nancy case that I haven't asked you that you want the audience to know about?
I don't think really. I mean, if they want to watch the movie, it's out there. It's called Who Killed Nancy, and also there's a book out there that I wrote called Sid Vicious, No One is Innocent, which, both of them are freely available through Amazon. And if they want to watch them, then, I recommend they either watch one or read the other, because they certainly have all the information in there,
Gotcha. Okay, Sid Vicious, No One is Innocent, and the video is called, the movie is called Who Killed Nancy. Tell us about this, 50 years ago today, the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper and Beyond.
I'd always been a mad Beatles fan. I mean, I'm mainly, oddly enough, I've done quite a lot of work with punk rock bands like the Sex Pistols. But, that is a little bit of a strange phenomenon for me, because I'm mainly a rock fan. I've been a metal fan all my life. I'm covered in tattoos to prove it. And anyone who's been near my Facebook or Twitter account will know that 90% of the time I'm writing about Motley Crue or Metallica or Iron Maiden or something like that. The reality is that there's a certain amount of stuff that came my way because of the fact that I was working for a record label, and a lot of the bands I was working with happened to be punk rock bands. But deep down inside also, there's always been this massive amount of affection for the Beatles. I was a massive Beatles fan from being a kid, and I love my favourite Beatles album of all time ever, without doubt, is almost certainly the album Sgt. Pepper. And myself and the film crew, the team I worked with, basically, they were 100% in America. The whole team were in America in 2016, early part of January, February, doing a documentary for a US TV station. It wasn't even a cinematic DVD thing. It was just for US television. And when we got to the end of it, I said to the team, look, guys, Sgt. Pepper album is 50 years old in 2017, and I'd like to do something about that, in the next few months, so that we can release it in 2017. So we did a bit of digging, looked for some really good Beatles footage. We knew quite a few people who'd worked with and for the Beatles over the years, so we kept that moving. And to cut a long story short, we basically came back to England in the early summer of 2016, wrapped up the project we were doing, and then started work on this film that became known as It Was 50 Years Ago Today. And, it was fun. It was great fun for us, because a lot of the people that we work with are Beatles fans. My researcher, Keith Babin, has written more work on Beatles than probably outside John Lennon and Paul McCartney, And he was the researcher on their official documentary, the Beatles anthology, about 10, 12 years ago. So we made this, and we put it into cinemas last year, and I know in some countries it's still opening in January this year, but it's done really, really well. It had a good run at the cinema, it's had a good run on Netflix, and it's also having a sales figure on DVD and Blu-ray. So I think we did what we set out to do.
Sent me some clips, and there's a lot of footage on there. And I'm a big Beatles fan. There's a lot of footage in there I've never seen before. You know?
We were lucky. I mean, we went out between me and a few of them of the team. We were an awful lot of Blu-rays, and I saw a lot of everything. And we just kept digging, and we sort of, I've not seen that before. Or Keith or Robin would go, well, I've not seen that before. Or Alexa, my producer, would go, well, I've never seen that before. And eventually we came to realize if we've never seen it, there's a fair chance that the Western world hasn't seen it, because we own, I don't know, I think I've got 19 shelves of Beatle DVDs and Blu-rays. So I thought, wow, I'm just going to take a risk and say, you know, that's how it would be, you know. And so we just licensed everything we possibly could and went from there, you know.
So it covers pretty much like the whole trip to the United States around the time that they were having that problem with when we said that they were bigger than Jesus, right?
Yeah. It started, basically, Ron Howard had made a film the year before about the Beatles touring years, 8 days a week. That was very successful. But Ron's film ended when the Beatles stopped touring. So what I did was kind of, if you like, pick up the baton. We did our film when the Beatles stopped touring. And then we went through the year of Fields, Penny Lane, Boko Ono, LSD, Brian Epstein's death, the Maharishi, the birth of Apple, and this massive album called Sgt. Pepper. You know?
Hey, what do you make of these people who say that the replacement?
I mean, it's funny, but it's. I think that's all it is. It's just a good story, you know. I think when any bands become really, really big, or as big as the Beatles did ultimately, you know, you're going to get things like that happening. The Paul is Dead myth is fabulous. If you ever go to a Beatles convention, and there's many of them around in the UK, America, Japan, to name but a few, there's a side room somewhere where all weekend was a slideshow, and it explains all the so-called clues of the Paul is Dead mystery. And I beg of you, go and see it, because it is amazing. Whoever came up with it must have had a lot of free time on their hands, because by the time you finish watching it, it almost becomes feasible. Yeah. You almost think, wow, this is pretty cool. You know, and they did a good job, but I don't think there's no reality in it. It's just a good little man-made myth around the Beatles, you know.
You know, it's kind of funny because you're right. When you start watching these videos and stuff like that, it is very convincing, you know, and you get caught up in it. And I've done quite a few shows on it. And I had May Pang on the show one time, and I asked her, I said, you know, what do you think about this theory? Yeah, I said, well, what do you think about, you know, the Paul is dead? And she says, oh, no. I've been in the same room with both of them, and I know he's not dead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's added to the. That's added.
Lunch with May in New York in October 2014, and she's good fun. She's really cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I loved her as a guest, but that kind of added to the whole myth because she says, "Oh no, I've been in the room with both of them." Yeah, at the time. But she was probably talking about
exactly. There you go.
Yeah, she was probably talking about John and Paul.
I thought she's good.
Oh yeah.
And she has got some great photographs. So she brought out a book of all her snapshots she took with that 18-month period, the last weekend that she was actually with John, and you know, there's some good stuff there, definitely. Yeah.
Well, and all your what else have you worked on? All your different books and stuff. You mentioned off the air like 18 books or something, right?
Yeah, 16 books, 13 movies. Yeah, which I always say is not bad for a dyslexic kid. You know, I don't know. I mean, I always had this dream from being quite young that I wanted to do something a bit different because I. Largely a cotton town, you know, and big on trade and industry. By the time I left school, the British government had closed down most of the cotton mills. So if you were, you know, people who were going to follow their grandfather or their father into a job now had no choice of a job. I wasn't one of those anyway, but I'd always been a huge rock and roll fan, and I felt, well, if I'm going to do anything, I may as well do something that's going to be a wee bit different. And so I'd been a rock and roll fan long before my beginning of my secondary school. So I basically started my own fans, and that led to me working with a lot of local bands, promoting gigs, bringing famous bands to the town. And the next thing you know, I'm moving down to London, became officer. And the rest, as they say, is history. It's just been a whirlwind since then. That's nearly 30 years ago. A long time ago.
Is that a peace officer? Is that what you said?
A press officer.
Press officer, okay. Yeah.
Sure. So, it was fun, It's been a fun roller coaster. I'm enjoying it, It's my birthday next week, and, I have no intention of stopping just yet. We're already planning lots more things that we're quite excited about wanting to do. So, it's going to be fun. I think it's going to continue for a while, and that's great,
But you've never been in a band yourself. It's always been writing about and promoting and things like that.
I was in a band back in Blackburn in the very early days, and I also worked with a lot of other bands in the town. And I think I became, I think I was wise enough, shall we say, to understand from a very early age that perhaps the best thing in the world needs to do, they say in the television world, they say always decide which side of the camera you're going to be on. And I decided very early on that I was going to be on the other side of the camera and not on the front side.
I got you. Now in London, on July 12th, you have something coming up at the Regent Street Cinema. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we got a few years ago now, I did a documentary with Status Quo, the British rock and roll band, and the documentary was called Hello Quo. It was the first ever big screen official documentary on Status Quo, and we did it. We put it out, and it was a big success, But most people have seen the down version, which was shown by British Television. So the version that we did for the DVD, the Blu-ray, and the first cinema run was 2 hours and 37 minutes long, and the version that the TV have shown over the years is about 90 minutes long. So I was approached by the Regent Street Cinema, which is one of the oldest cinemas. In fact, the place is called the birthplace of British cinema because I think it's the oldest cinema in London, England. It's just off Oxford Circus. It's a beautiful cinema. I've done work there before. And they kept us and said, what about in the full-length version of the film back onto the screen for one night only? So we looked at options and what we could do with it. And we came up with the idea that the best time to do it would be July because it's summertime and people may want to go out for the night or, meet up with their friends and stuff. So we basically just said, okay, so now we're going to do it. So we booked the place, we put the cinema tickets on sale, I think, about 2 weeks ago. And as far as I'm told from my friends down there at the cinema, the whole thing is selling very well. It's good.
And Status Quo is a band? I've never heard of them.
They're a British rock and roll band, yeah. They're huge in England, huge in Europe, but not for decades.
Oh, okay. I'm a little I'm kind of losing touch a little bit. And so what's coming up next?
I'm afraid I can't. It's one of those scenarios. We're at contract state at the moment, so I can't really say what it is, although let me just say that we're planning 2 or 3 really exciting things as we speak.
Okay, but it's like top secret.
It's not something I'm allowed to talk about just yet, no, but it is going to be fun. And obviously if people want to look at my Facebook account, Alan G. Parker, or my Twitter account, Alan G. Parker, everything will be announced in the fullness of time, as they say.
Okay, great. So can you sum up, how do you want to leave the audience?
Well, I just, like I say, the way I look at it, we're enjoying what we're doing, we're having fun doing it, and we love it. We want to continue doing it for some time. So I guess, we'll just continue doing what we do. I don't know if I'll ever write another book again, because I think after 16 I figure I've written enough. But certainly film-wise, I want to continue making films for many years to come,
Excellent. And how can people get in touch? You go to Facebook, Alan G. Parker, or Twitter, Alan G. Parker, that's it?
Facebook, Alan G. Parker, Twitter, Alan G. Parker. I'm normally active on both of them on a daily basis. Sometimes it's only for about 20 minutes, other times it's for a few hours. So, you want to ask me a question question or you want to, come and just take a look at what it is we do, we're constantly update Picture Library on there, and everything that we do. And so, yeah, that's the easiest way to find out what we're about, really.
Okay, let me ask you this. When I was looking up on Amazon, and I looked up Alan G. Parker, Who Killed Nancy came up right away, but that was pretty much it. Should we also look for Alan Parker without the G?
It shouldn't be pretty much it, because I just, oddly enough, for a friend of mine, I was actually on Amazon earlier, and about 12 of my films came up quite quickly. So I don't know, but realistically speaking, it should be quite easy to get my films up. But if not, as I say, if you go onto the Twitter account or the Facebook account, you will see that there is, what can I say, there's many sort of things going on there, and you'll see all the various titles and the links, and then you'll be able to look at the other things whenever you want to. Okay. And we find them from there,
Yeah, that must be my mistake. Then I must have been distracted or something. But Alan G. Parker, Alan G. Parker, thank you so much. Okay.
Okay, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Okay, so there we had Alan G. Parker, Who Killed Nancy, and then we also talked about his film about the Beatles. The Beatles, it was 50 years ago today, the Sgt. Pepper and Beyond. I used to hang out down at right next to CBGB's, because I was one of the hippies down there in Bleecker Street. And known artists and people like that used to congregate there as well. Once again, if you're here in the Vegas area today, still got time, okay? There's going to be a big event tonight. Nina Turner, and I should be getting an interview with Nina Turner tonight when I get there too. It's not guaranteed, but we're plugged in enough. I should be able to get a little interview with her. Nina Turner is the president of Our Revolution, which is the Bernie Sanders campaign PAC and stuff like that. It took over for Bernie Sanders' campaign, and he kept going the Our Revolution movement, and she's the president of it. And tonight at 912 West Owens Avenue, Las Vegas, Nevada, at 6 p.m., they're going to have food. There's going to be tacos there. There's going to be music. This group called the Owls, local group. There's going to be speakers, local speakers and stuff like that. Amy Villella will be there. And if you go back and look in the archives, my interviews with Amy Villella, fascinating woman. She's running for a Congress here in CD4, and it looks like she's going to win. And all full disclosure, my daughter's volunteering for the campaign over there. She does opposition research. She helps with the debate, stuff like that. So she's over there volunteering. So that's full disclosure there. Okay, my daughter's involved in the campaign. By the way, we just found out too that Victoria is number one PF debate. What is that called? She's like the number one PF debater in the whole state. Yeah, just found out Vic is female public forum debater, number one female public forum debater in the state of Nevada. Okay, and next year she'll be number one out of both men and women. Okay, so she's only in high school. She's a junior in high school, and we're going to be also too. We're going to be promoting a GoFundMe for the debate team to go to nationals. The people on her team who made it to nationals. We'll be promoting a little GoFundMe. I'm going to be interviewing her and some of her debate team co-debaters, on her team over there. In the near future, we're going to be having them on to talk about their efforts to get to nationals. And then Vic, too, she's going to the World School Nationals down in Florida, too. So, debate stuff is going very, very too. Now, if you like today's show, be sure and check out OppermanReport.com, okay? Because we're toward the end of the month. Today's the 26th. We're getting toward the end of the month, and we're low on funds in order to pay for Spreaker and the Cox cable bill with the internet and all that's not paid up this month yet either. And then there's Skype, and then there's Spreaker, Skype, and there's a couple of little things, too, that we have to pay for to keep the bills going here. So we're offering you a discount in the membership section, where there's always great new content up there in our member section. If you contact me at oppermanreport@gmail.com, we'll give you a deal, okay? 13 months for $60. And I only need like 4 new memberships to get us through the hump this month and to get us past to cover these bills, the cable bills, and the cable internet, all that kind of stuff like that. It's about $200, you figure. So 4 memberships, $60 each, 13 months, it's a good deal. We can keep on the air for another month, okay? And don't forget, GetTheTea.com, our great sponsor there, Ronnie, just sent us some new tea. And like I've been saying, I've been working out on this tea now at least 40 days. I've been doing the Daniel fast. So no alcohol, no coffee, no sugar, no meat, no fish, which I'm a vegan anyway, so all that's fine. It's no problem. But working out every day, swimming. I swam a half mile this morning. As soon as the show's over, I'm going to go on a bike ride. And I think I owe it all to GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea. Coming up after this break, we have Ramona Africa. This is her 3rd or 4th time back on the show. She call herself? The Minister of Information or Public Information Officer for the group MOVE. You might remember the group MOVE back in Philadelphia back in the 80s. They were a grassroots movement there, like in a commune, like a family living all together. Where do I get this thing here? So she describes herself. Oh, come on. Minister of Communication for MOVE organization. And she's the last survivor. When the police were bombing their home and shooting at them through the windows and hitting them with water cannons, she was able to escape with a little boy at the time named Birdie. This was in 1985. And Birdie has passed on since then in a hot tub incident. He had a hot tub accident, I think a heart attack in a hot tub, something of that nature. And he passed away. So now Ramon is the last survivor who's free. But the members of MOVE are still in prison to this day from the first attack on their first home. I believe it was on Osage Avenue. We're going to be hearing all these details after this break coming up when we have Ramona Africa come on the show. And so is women who were there at the first attack that the police admit, that the prosecutor admit, never fired a gun, never did anything to assault anybody, never tried to harm anybody. They were in a basement. As the basement was filling up with water, they got up on tables and they had to hold their babies over their head as they were being shot at to prevent their babies from drowning in this flooded basement from the water cannons attacking their home. So these women who never hurt anybody, never harmed anybody, never picked up a gun, never fired a gun, never even gave a finger, a dirty finger, stuck their tongues out at the police, have been in prison since 1985. And they have an opportunity of parole coming up. So we're going to try and motivate people to contact the parole board on their behalf and motivate and urge the parole board to let them get out of there and live out their last years in peace and freedom. So right. And now a word from our sponsors.
Hi folks, Ronnie here from Life Change Tea. There's a lot of hubbub about the ramifications of GMOs. First of all, what are GMOs? Genetically modified organisms. Yee! Man-made organisms entering our body, changing and damaging us from the inside out. What's our defense? First of all, not eating them. Second, cleansing from them when we do eat them. Thank God for Life Change Tea at GetTheTea.com. Life Change Tea cleanses from toxins, heavy metals, and helps flush GMOs out of your body. Our unique blend of herbs help cleanse you from the inside out, helping you feel refreshed and clean of yee. We also carry unique one-of-a-kind supplements. So order online at GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Rid yourself of the yee that contaminates your food and water. Go to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Get the tea, your best defense.
The Opperman Report is brought to you by SubhashTechnosis.com. Subash Technosis is a search engine optimization and website design company. They're located in India, so you know you're going to save a lot of money and get top quality service. They offer all sorts of business process outsourcing, data entry, banking BPO services, recruitment process outsourcing, software testing, offshoring, research network, customer care, press release, content writing, and distribution, and much, much more. Now, you can get a hold of Subash Technosis by email at info@subashtechnosis.com. Their website is www.subashtechnosis.com, and their Skype is ANUSHASUBASH.
WPR Rebuttal, covering the sides of the story missed by Wisconsin Public Radio, bringing you narratives the UW System Board of Regents won't allow, shedding light on perspectives the owners of WPR don't want you to hear. Every Thursday at 12:30 Central Time, WPR Rebuttal is your destination for grassroots journalism in Sauk County and beyond. Our host, Senator JPO, provides insightful analysis into stories that are only superficially covered by mainstream press. A recent inventory of topics includes college graduate underemployment, yellow journalism in the media, and favoritism in the public sector hiring process. Get your WPR Rebuttal fix Thursdays at 12:30 Central Time.
Remember, all these shows on Awake are brought to you by emailrevealer.com. You can go to emailrevealer.com and get a copy of my book, How to Become a Successful Private Investigator. You also do all the kind of different services for you. Online dating service investigations called an online infidelity investigation. And that's where you give us your husband or your boyfriend, your girlfriend's email address, and we trace it back to their online dating websites, and we return a list of all the dating sites that email is registered to. We can expand on that investigation and trace it back to porn sites, escort service sites, swinger sites, gambling websites, and even prescription drug websites, and all kinds of digital forensics, computer and cell phone digital forensics, where we can recover deleted content from an email or a hard drive and produce a report for you that you can use in court. That's emailrevealer.com, or you can contact me at oppermaninvestigations@gmail.com.
We all have questions. Did he do it or did he not? We all have opinions, but do we really know the truth? New evidence will now be presented and the ultimate answers will be revealed in the explosive documentary, Serpents Rising. Inspired by the bestseller Double Cross for Blood, an independent investigation of the trial of the century, the lies, the myths, and the concealed evidence. Don't miss Serpents Rising.
This excellent documentary film is available at Serpents Rising at Vimeo Videos on demand. Watch it for $1.99.
For an in-depth discussion of conspiracy theories, strategy of New World Order resistance, high-profile court cases in the news, and interviews with expert guests and authors on these topics and more. It's the Opperman Report. And now, here is investigator Ed Opperman.
Okay, welcome back to the Opperman Report. I'm your host, Private Investigator Ed Opperman. This show is brought to you by GetTheTea.com. Check out Life Change Tea. Let's see here. I'm bringing on my next guest here, Ramona Africa. Let's see if I remember how to do this. Let's see if I got to add to this call. I put the number up there, but then it doesn't let me call it, does it? Let me see. All show. That's not working. Let's try this. I'll go over here to the dial pad over here. No, go up here and try this. And put the number and see what happens. Oh, that's a UK from our last guest we just had on. Alan G. Parker. Okay, here we go. Let's try this. See if we can get on the phone. We're going to dial this. I might lose Danny. Let's see what happens. Oh, good. Yeah, add to group call. Okay. There we go. Ramona Africa from Move. Dialing her up right now. She's in Philadelphia. Still Philadelphia all these years. 1985. Everybody talks about Waco, but hardly anybody talks about Ramona Africa from...
Hello.
Hi, Ramona.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Ed Opperman. You're live on the air on the compliment report.
Okay, I want to move.
How you in Africa? Tell everybody, who is Ramona Africa?
Ramona Africa is the Minister of Communication for the MOVE organization, the only adult survivor of the May 1985 bombing and murder of my MOVE family. I am a representative of the International Concerned Family and Friends of Mumia Abu Jamal. I am, most importantly, a revolutionary disciple of John Africa, the founder of the MOVE organization.
And why don't you tell people what is MOVE?
MOVE is a revolutionary organization founded by John Africa, and the foundation of John Africa's teaching and MOVE's belief is the all-importance of life, life being not a priority, but the priority. And toward that end, what a lot of people don't know is that our first demonstrations and protests were at the Philadelphia Zoo in opposition to the enslavement and abuse of animal life. We had protests and demonstrations against chemical companies that poison the environment, like Dow Chemical and DuPont Chemical. We held demonstrations at the reservoir where Philadelphia's drinking water comes from because it was being poisoned by industry. And we had protests at unsafe boarding homes for the elderly, where the elderly were being physically and emotionally abused. This is what MOVE started out doing, and only got involved with police and officials when they started attacking MOVE people at our peaceful demonstrations and trying to say that we could not have our protests, could not have our peaceful protests. You know.
No.
And MOVE confronted them like, what are you talking about? Don't you tell the world that in America you have freedom of speech, freedom to protest? You know, what does it say except for the MOVE organization?
Ramona, did you see this? They just had these neo-Nazis, KKK, had a rally down there. I think it was in Georgia, some small town in Georgia, and 400. And there was only like 40 of these Nazis, but 400 heavily armed police with rifles were holding the Antifa, the anti-fascist protesters. And again, only about 30 of them were holding them at rifle point during their protest. Did you see that?
No, I didn't. You're saying that the police held at rifle point these KKK protesters?
Yeah, the people protesting against the KKK. The KKK,
them,
yeah,
right.
The KKK were allowed to do whatever they want, and they actually tackled and arrested some people for having bandanas over their face. This was one of their, but they were pointing rifles. Protesters were protesting with their hands up, while the police were holding rifles at them.
Well, surprise, surprise. I mean, that's America.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think America was founded on? I mean, they talk about the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, where it says we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Who were they talking about? They weren't talking about the Africans that they brought here in chains. They weren't talking about the indigenous people that they slaughtered to virtual extinction. They weren't talking about women. You know, they weren't even talking about white men that didn't own land. So, you know, who were they talking about, and what did they really stand for? What were they really establishing here?
So people who have this perception that Move was this radical, violent group, describe what your day-to-day life was in your first home there before the first attack.
Taking care of animals, Move people would feed and water animals. People complained that we had a lot of dogs, Yes, we had a number of dogs, but where did those dogs come from? They came from college students going home for the summer and abandoning those dogs, leaving them locked in apartments, Another dog Move rescued from the Schuylkill River, where somebody threw the dog into the river, and Move rescued him. He was called River Dog. This is where we got our dogs. We found homes for some dogs, but we still had quite a few dogs. Yes, we did, So our work was to take care of those dogs. We raised money through a car wash, a lucrative car wash that we had, because people appreciated the work that Move was doing and continues to do, and they would give us generous donations for us washing their cars. People would bring their cars from all over Philadelphia for Move to wash their cars and give us, like I said, generous donations. So we had children to take care of, and for those who don't know, we live communally, so the children were always under Move's care, not in daycare or, anything like that. Move people took care of Move children. They were always with us. We exercised and worked out daily, ran, that was our day, along with, protests that we organized and confronting then Mayor Frank Rizzo, who was a vicious, racist cop that moved up to police commissioner and who eventually made mayor, got elected mayor.
And did Move believe in TV sets? Did you have TV sets in the home?
No, not back then. At some time we did, but never really had time to engage in it once in a while,
And how many members?
That wasn't really our priority. Our priority was waking people up to what this system is doing and was doing back then and continues to do to all life, not just people, but all life. Humans, animals, marine life, the air, the water, the soil that feeds us, all life. And that is what occupied, our time. That is our work.
Now, was Move vegetarian or vegan?
John Africa taught us that, no, humans are not coordinated to eat meat. If you could catch a cow and kill it, yourself, take it down without guns and traps and everything that gives you an obviously unfair advantage over the animal. If you can catch a fish without a spear, a rod, a hook, and all of that, like a bear catches his salmon, then go for it. If you can catch a chicken and take it down and eat it, go for it. But we're not coordinated for that. Mother Nature has every species of life coordinated for their diet. I mean, elephants are huge, but they don't eat meat. They eat herbs and grass and stuff like that. You know, we're all coordinated for our diet. The diet that John Africa explained to us is a raw food diet, fruits, vegetables, nuts, you know, things like that. And raw because that is the way we are supposed to eat. No other species of life cooks their food. Not one.
What about milk and cheese? Dairy?
It's processed. It's not raw.
Okay. Yeah,
no other species of life, the cow or a goat or any other species of life, steals humans' milk.
Right.
Only humans take milk from the cows and starve the baby cow. You know.
Since the last time we've talked, I've become a vegan. I'm vegan now. I know milk, no cheese, no meat, and I tell you, it changes. It changes the way you think. It changes your life.
Oh yeah, yes it does.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
It's a big difference, and I think if people would just detox from that meat, it would just change their thinking in so many ways.
Yeah.
So you've been vegan then your whole life then, since 80, your whole life then probably.
No, I didn't come to move till I was 23, going on 24, almost 24. And the thing is, like I said, the raw food diet that John Africa encourages, always did, encouraging us, it's not something that you can just jump into, you know. You have to work at it, work for it. But, you know, the most important thing that John Africa taught, moved people, encouraged in people, both move and non-move, is that the true revolution starts with self. It starts with how you think and removing yourself from a system that has never done anything good or right for you or any life, any living thing. You know? I mean, okay, you still eat meat, you still eat dairy or whatever, but if you're thinking along the lines that this system is wrong and have wrong life and exploits and enslaves living beings and has never done anything good or right or in life's interest, if you start thinking like that and moving in that direction, that's what's important. That's what's important.
Are there any books written by or about John Africa or recordings of his teachings?
Well, there is what's called the guidelines, authored by John Africa. And in the very early days of MOVE, we used to give out MOVE guidelines sections, because that's how it's written, in sections on every aspect of life that you can think of. And that was fine initially, but then people start taking the guidelines and the wisdom of John Africa and exploiting and prostituting them, and never giving credit to the source of wisdom that they were reading and talking about. So, you know, we had to stop giving it out like that. We still will give people excerpts and quotes from the, you know, MOVE guidelines from the writing of John Africa, but we don't give out guidelines like we used to in the very early days of MOVE.
And what about recordings of teachings or speeches?
Of John Africa?
Yeah, do they exist?
No, we don't have recordings of John Africa. John Africa always stayed in the background even after he whooped the federal government in federal court in 1981, all the media was after him. And he told them, talk to my family, talk to the Move 9, who are still in prison till this day. 40 years they've been in prison this year. And that's what, John Africa told all the, countless news media that was after him and wanted him, to speak, wanted to do interviews with him,
How many Move members are in prison right now?
Well, it's just the Move 9 right now. 2 of my family members have died, been killed in prison. Merle, our sister Merle Africa, one of the Move 9, was killed in prison in March of 1998 after 20 years of unjust imprisonment. And then our brother Phil Africa was murdered in prison in January of 2015. And each time the prison officials said they died of, what do they call it, natural causes. And we're saying, well, what does that mean? Natural causes, what did they die from? Talking about strong, healthy people died of natural causes. They weren't 70 and 80 years old, So, our focus right now is on the rest of the Move 9. And my 3 sisters of the Move 9 go up for parole May 15th. And we're really focusing a lot of energy and attention on them because, this is absolutely ridiculous. Ed. 40 years they've been eligible for parole, 10 years now. 10 years. And each time the parole board denies my Move family, and they say refusal to take responsibility for your offenses. And Move is like, what offenses? In both confrontations, both attacks on Move, hundreds of cops, this system, came out to our home to kill. We didn't go to any politician's home, any police commissioner, any mayor's home attacking them. They came out to our home, and not to arrest, but to kill. And so our refusal to take responsibility for our offenses, what offenses? When are these officials ever going to take responsibility for their offenses against not just Move or people, but all life? The life that they slaughter en masse like minks simply to get their coats to put them on our backs. Like the mink's coat is supposed to be on our backs and looks better on our backs than it does on the mink's back that Mother Nature put them on. The air that they poison, the water that they pollute, the wholesale slaughter of the indigenous people in this country, the people that are shot down, murdered daily by cops, and the cops never held accountable. Never held accountable. When are they going to take responsibility for their offenses?
Yeah, we have the highest prison population of any country, percentage-wise, of any country on the planet. And now,
absolutely.
These 3 women who have a parole hearing May 15th, what caused them to wind up in... Why are they in prison in the first place? What caused them to wind up in prison?
because on August 8th of 1978, police officials failed to kill them. And in their frenzy to kill MOVE people in our home, they ended up killing one of their own through friendly fire. And let me make it clear, MOVE didn't invent that term, friendly fire. This system invented it to describe when people working on the same side end up injuring or killing one of their comrades. They called it friendly fire. So people should not be so quick to dismiss it when MOVE says that, because we didn't invent that term. When they realized that they had not killed MOVE on August 8th of 78, they used the death of Officer James Ramp as the excuse to put my family in prison for as long as possible. I mean, it's very obvious and clear that MOVE did not kill James Ramp. He was shot with a bullet traveling on a downward angle, and he was standing up on street level, and MOVE people were in the basement of our home, and there's no way they could have shot him. No way physically possible they could have shot him on a downward angle when they're 6 feet below him. And they know that. Officials know that. Then they destroyed our home, the scene of the crime. I mean, since when do officials do that? A cop was killed. You know good and well that if they really believed that MOVE people killed Officer James Ramp, that they would have preserved every bit of evidence to prove that. Finally, though, the trial judge, Judge Edwin Malman, who presided over the trial alone without a jury, it was what's called a bench trial. At the end of the trial, when he convicted my 9 family members of 1 murder, 1 cop, 1 bullet, he convicted all 9 of murder. Not 1 murder and the rest of the 8 conspiracy, but all 9 murder. Sentenced them to 30-year minimums and 100-year maximum sentences. He then went on a radio talk show, just like we're involved in right now. And when Mumia Abu-Jamal heard him, he called in and he asked Judge Malmet one simple question: who killed Officer James Ramp? Judge Malmet responded, and I quote, he said, "I haven't the faintest idea." This is a man that's very educated. He's a judge, well-versed in the English language, knows how to say what he wants to say, what he intends to say. He didn't say, well, I don't know which one, but I'm confident that one of them did it, so I convicted all 9. He didn't say that. He said exactly what he meant. He didn't have the faintest idea. Now, whether you're a judge or a juror, in order to convict somebody of a charge, you are supposed to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, does I haven't the faintest idea sound like certain beyond a reasonable doubt? No. No. And our family sits in prison doing their 30-year minimum, which was in 2008, and then the parole board adds insult to injury carries on the injustice by refusing to parole my family, even though the prisons that my family is in have recommended them for parole, have recommended them over and over.
Well, what can people do? Can they contact the parole board? Do you have the phone number and the address?
Absolutely.
What's the...
Absolutely.
Is it on your website?
People can go right to our website, OnAMove, ONAMOVE.com, and get the information to contact them. People are writing, emailing, faxing, calling them, and it's been putting pressure on them because after a little while of people calling, the numbers no longer work. So then we have to get the new number. But they're feeling the pressure. They're feeling the pressure from not just Pennsylvania, but all over this country, and our supporters in France, Germany, Spain, the Netherlands, you name it. People have been on the case demanding parole for the Movement.
For people who are familiar with the story of the row house that was burned down, the police dropped a bomb on it, they burned 60 homes. Can you clarify the difference between the attack on August 8, 1978, which I believe was Osage Avenue, and that freestanding...
No, 78 was Powelton Village. 85, the bombing was Osage Avenue.
Okay, all right, I always get that wrong. Okay, but the first one, the August 8th, that was a freestanding home. This was a detached home where you were taking care of dogs. And their basic complaint about you then was that you didn't have curtains on the windows and things like that?
Yeah, and didn't have glass in some of the windows. I mean, they claimed the issue was housing code violation.
Right.
And they led a campaign saying that we had to leave our home. And this was in May of 78. And they said they wanted us out by August 1st. Now, the thing is, some MOVE people, were coordinated to go on other activities, namely down in Richmond, Virginia. They were not in the house, on August 8th or before that. But on August 5th, Philadelphia cops went down to Richmond, Virginia, and stormed our house down there and brought our sisters back to Philadelphia. Now, if the issue was the house and vacating the house, why did they go down there to Richmond, Virginia and bring them back? Their aim was to kill, Ed. That's what people have a hard time wrapping their minds around and accepting. In 78, they came out there to exterminate, annihilate everybody, every living being in our home. They failed to do it. They were pissed and vengeful. So in 85, when they decided to come after us again, they were determined to do what they failed to do in 78, which is why they came out there with bombs. They didn't go send for it. They came out there with it. And their excuse to people was that some neighbors had complaints about us. Of course, okay. Some people did have complaints about us. But since when does this government care about black people complaining about their neighbors? Since when? And when is the solution to neighborhood complaints? Dropping a bomb, igniting a fire, and refusing to put the fire out, letting the fire burn, shooting at us as we tried to get our children, our animals, and ourselves out of that blazing inferno, to the point where 11 11 Move people were literally burnt to death, including 5 children.
It's horrific, you know. And we just had some a TV series about Waco, you know, which is a similar attack, you know. But there seems to be more sympathy, though. And we had Thibodeau on the show too. He said he met you, and you guys were friendly. But there seems to be more sympathy, though, for the Waco people, and Move is just forgotten.
Well, people they want Move to be forgotten, but people are in contact with us from all over this country. We travel literally all over the world, have traveled all over the world, and people have not forgotten. People still remember, and we encourage people and direct people as to what they can do, you know, in support of Move and the Move 9. And people are very interested in the teaching of John Africa. And I'll tell you one reason, a main reason why, is that they see all that this system have come at us with. I mean, from beating us up, locking us up, beating pregnant Move women into miscarriage, killing our babies, a 3-week-old baby trampled to death by the police, you know, being sentenced to 30 to 100 years in jail. And hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, they see that, and they see that we have not gone away, that we are still fighting, still strong, still committed to bringing this rotten system down, exposing it to people, exposing what it's doing to all life. And people respect that. Respect that. You know, back in the early days of Move, especially directly after August of 78, that attack, Frank Rizzo was like, so closes the final chapter of Move. Wrong. Wrong. We are still here, still fighting, still standing for what's right, and we have not compromised one bit. I'll tell you, you know, in the early days of Move, what John Africa had taught us, from the way we wear our hair naturally in locks, people laughed at us, made fun of us, told us, do something with your hair, and blah, blah, blah. John Africa told us, don't worry about it. Before long, you're going to see a whole lot of people wearing their hair like this in what's called locks. What do you see today, Ed? Athletes, football players with their helmets on and locks hanging out of them, you know? Actors, actresses, singers, dancers, all kind of celebrated people who wear their hair in locks now, you know? Raw food, you know, when John Africa explained to us about raw food and encouraged that, you know, people went crazy. You're going to make yourself sick eating raw food. You can't eat food like that. You have to cook it. Your body can't process it. You're going to make your children sick eating them raw food. And people were going crazy. What do you see today, Ed, from the West Coast to the East Coast? Raw food restaurants and nutritionists, etc., who espouse the benefits, the health of raw food. You know, giving birth to babies naturally at home. You know, with raw food and you know, natural childbirth, John Africa told us, look to life. What other species of life cooks their food? What other species of life, other than humans, of course, goes to a hospital to have babies? You know? Only humans. Today, after people have criticized us and ostracized us and said we were going to die, we were going to kill our babies, you have to go to the hospital and all of that. Here we are, years later, first with 3 generations of Move people giving birth to their babies at home. 3 generations. We never had any catastrophes, you know? Never had any catastrophes. Secondly, what do you see in this system now? They encourage what they call natural childbirth. You know? Everything. Oh, homeschooling. They said that our kids would be stupid, that we had to send our children to school. They tried to force us through the courts to, you know, send our children to this system's schools. What do you see today? So many people homeschool their children today. It's a very accepted thing, very widespread.
I remember, the last time you were on the show, too, you were telling me about composting your waste. You would have compost.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And now,
absolutely.
it's all the stuff that's fashionable
they
now.
Said we were nasty and dirty and throwing garbage in the backyard and all kind of stuff. Today, they put a cute little word called composting on it, and it's the green thing to do.
Yeah. Well, if you're wearing yoga pants, right? You got to wear the yoga pants and the Starbucks coffee, and then it's cool. Now, let me ask you, these 3 women, we have a May 17th, May 15th parole hearing, these 3 women. What?
Right.
Now, these women, everyone acknowledges they've never picked up a weapon. They never threw a rock, these women. Am I right?
Right, yeah. Yeah. The only thing the cops could say is that they were holding babies, and they never had weapons charges.
So these women, they were in the basement. The basement was full of water. They were standing up on a table, holding their babies over their heads so that the babies wouldn't drown from the water. Now,
yep, absolutely.
And you would think under normal circumstances, the people pushing the water into the home would be the ones charged with the crime, trying to drown babies.
You would think, but in the May 85 bombing that murdered 11 of our family members, not one single official was ever charged with anything, held accountable in any way at all. They're collecting their pensions, and some still employed in the police department. I mean, you know, this is America. And what riles us is that our family, our innocent family members, have been in jail 40 years, you know, being called murderers, cop killer, by this system. But meanwhile, the cops that murdered our family, murdered our babies, they ain't called baby killers. They're not sitting in prison next to our family doing 30 to 100 years. You know?
It really is amazing. Yeah, that there's never been a pardon or anything. That there's been pardons out there for other political prisoners and stuff. That there's never in a case like this so outrageous where they burned 60 homes.
Yeah.
Now,
and murder people.
Yeah.
Actually murder people. I mean, they deliberately shot at us.
Right.
As we were trying to get out of that blazing inferno, you know? But when you mention pardon, what's the word? What goes with the term pardon is an acknowledgement that you did something wrong to be pardoned for.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Now, were you
didn't do anything wrong?
When you escaped the attack and the bombing and the shooting, were you charged?
Oh yeah, I did 7 years in jail. I was charged with everything that they did. I was charged with arson, possession of explosives, risking and causing a catastrophe, simple and aggravated assault, conspiracy. I mean, you name it. Everything that they did, I was charged with. And the thing is, they came out there with warrants that charged disorderly conduct, terroristic threats, which is a lie, but come on, words, if you even accept that. And after the bombing happened, and I went to court, they had to dismiss those charges in the warrants that they came out there with. They dismissed them as unfounded, no basis to them. So you would think that if the foundation of them being out there is invalid, how could anything coming from that be valid?
Yeah, you would think if the original charges, that brought them to the scene of the crime there, were later on overturned, then everything beyond that should be wiped out as well. You would think,
Mm-hmm.
Now you prevailed in a civil trial, though, right?
Yeah,
yes
I
and
filed a civil suit listing all of the defendants that I could think of. The district attorney, the police commissioner, fire commissioner, mayor, managing director, FBI officers who provided the C4 military explosive for the bomb, and I mean everybody we could think of, right? The trial didn't go to court until '96. I was home by then. But during that time, from, I think I filed the suit in '86 or something like that. During that time, every single defendant in my lawsuit was granted immunity and dismissed from my lawsuit except the fire commissioner and the police commissioner and the city of Philadelphia as an entity. They were the only three left in the suit, when it went to court.
And you were awarded a judgment, but it was an added insult to injury.
Well, yeah, I was awarded a judgment by the jury, $1 a week, each week for 11 years, each from the fire commissioner and the police commissioner, and a $500,000 award from the city of Philadelphia. Now, that might seem like a lot of money, $500,000, to some people, but I lost my family. I was attacked, And the thing is, I remember a woman getting $1 million for spilling hot coffee on herself in a McDonald's. What they did to me and my family, $500,000. I mean, we didn't do it. We didn't file a suit for the money. But it speaks volumes. And after the jury gave that ridiculous, whatever you want to call it, of $1 a week each week from the fire commissioner and police commissioner, the judge came back and overruled the jury and granted the police commissioner and the fire commissioner immunity, and they didn't even have to pay the $1 a week, either one of them.
In all of the lawsuit and the discovery, did you ever find out how it came about that on these stupid little charges you were discussing, the original charges that were dropped anyway, how did they get their hands on C4 in such a short period of time, C4 explosives, in such a short period of time?
No. It wasn't a short period of time.
Okay.
They got it from the FBI, and they had been practicing, rehearsing their attack on us for at least a year. They practiced blowing up a simulation of our roof. Yeah, this wasn't no short period of time. They had been practicing and rehearsing what they were going to do. And that's why, I stress to people, don't be naive about this. They came out there to kill, not to arrest. The issue with this system was not any complaints from neighbors. It is our unrelenting fight for the release of our innocent family members, known as the Move 9.
Right, and let's not forget that May 15th, there's a parole hearing May 15th, and you can go to honormove.com. You could find the address for the parole board. And in normal cases, you can influence the parole board with a couple of letters, especially if you're a victim of a case. So this is so political, though, and it's just such a one-sided operation. But you definitely got to bombard them with phone calls and send them a letter and a fax, whatever you can do, emails. I know they have an email address on there. So honormove.com. And we'll keep pressing it, too, between now and May 15th as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah, one more thing, too, is you notice they've never, you think it's sort of an admission of guilt when they've never, again, used C4, dropped C4 on another building after that as a tactic.
Oh, yeah.
Right? This is like the last time they've ever pulled that stunt.
Yeah.
So
they realized they really blew it with that. And I have to say that some of the children that were murdered are children of the Move 9 who had young children when they were unjustly arrested and sent to prison, had spent years in prison to have their babies, their children, bombed and burned alive, And also, when you talk about them not using C4 again like that, Move people are living beings. We're alive. We have feelings. And so we can be hurt. We have feelings. But the thing is, just like we were hurt behind May 13th, losing our family like that, this system was hurt too. They could no longer, never again, hold their head up around the world and talk about this being the country of freedom, justice, equality, human rights, all of that. They could no longer do it because people around the world were like, in the U.S., in America, this could happen? What is going on? So, while we were hurt and devastated by the loss of our family, because we do have feelings, we can be hurt, but we won't be stopped. It's this system. It's this system that has had to back up.
Ramona, how do you look at the state of the revolution? Do you think we're making advances, or you think we're making we're losing? You think?
I do.
You think we're better off?
I think that things are moving forward, very, very gradually, and I think that because this system is doing our work for us. I mean, all these police shootings, murders, they're waking people up. It's a shame that so many people have to be murdered or go through this, But it is, unfortunately, that happens. But it is waking people up. I mean, it was the birth of Black Lives Matter, And people are not as naive as they were about this system before. They're not. They are absolutely not. And people may think I'm crazy, but I'm here to tell you I think Trump is the best thing to ever happen for this revolution.
Well, I
really do.
I kind of said the same thing.
You can't hallucinate about him. He ain't hiding who he is, and he is getting people off their butts, on their feet, and out in the street.
Yeah, I said the same thing, that it would get the street activists organized and motivated and out there in the streets, like you said. Yeah, but they're still just it's still kind of
It's rough, right? It's rough.
Listen, we only got about 3 minutes left. Give us some encouragement, because I tell you, you're such a beautiful woman, and I look at your picture from 1985, and I look at your picture today. I know I look at a picture of me in 1985. I look like a corpse today.
Oh my God!
And you're always encouraging. You have a great smile on your voice all the time. I'm so encouraged hearing your voice. Give us some encouragement.
Okay. One thing that John Africa taught us is no matter what, never give in. As long as you keep fighting, doing whatever you can do, to keep going, then you are victorious. You have not been defeated. You are only defeated when you throw your hands up and give in. Then you are defeated. But as long as you keep going, keep working, never give in, and there may be times where you're not able to do all the things that you did a year ago, it may come back, in the next year you may be able to do more. The thing is never, ever give in. That is what those running this system count on, bank on. People flaring up for an instant and then fizzling out. That is why MOVE is such a thorn in their side, because despite everything that they have come at us with, everything they have used on every other organization that they've been confronted with and wanted to, break down and break up, none of it works with the MOVE organization. And that is because John Africa gave us that understanding. Never give in.
Ramona Africa, your website's onamove.com. What about contact information? Phone number, email? Do you have one to give out?
Yep. People can email us at on the move, ONAMOVE LLJA for Long Live John Africa at gmail.com. People can call us at 215-386-1165.
Ramona Africa, God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Ed. Take care.
Thank you.
On the move. Long live revolution. Long live John Africa.
Amen. God bless you, sister. I want to thank... I want to thank Ramona Africa for keeping me in the loop. Since the first time I had her on the show about 4 years ago, she emails me all the time, and I really, really appreciate it. And this is how I knew about this May 15th parole hearing coming up, and we have opportunity to support our friends there rotting away in a prison. These three women who never lifted a finger, never give a dirty look at these cops. And they were holding their babies over their heads, and as their home was being filled with water, they're being shot at in prison for 40 years. Okay, I can't see how anybody can justify that. And now that I hear this, I didn't even know this. Maybe I heard and I forgot. But that they were practicing the C4 explosion drop on these row houses there on Osage Avenue. Never aware of that before. That's just outrageous that we would tolerate such an attack on innocent families and women and children. If you like the show, remember OppermanReport.com. That's where our member section is. We have more content in there. You can also support the show with a donation at OppermanReport@gmail.com. If you want a special discount for your membership, I'll give you 13 months for $60. Contact me at OppermanReport@gmail.com. We're at the end of the month. Today, is as we do this broadcast, it's the 26th, and we don't have the money to pay for Spreaker. We don't have the money to pay for the internet. So if someone could get a couple of memberships through here, keep us on the air for another month. We don't. I don't like to come on here, and tell you financial problems. And last month we had a rough one, but we didn't survive it. What are we going to do? It's month after month. We could sponsorships too. If you want to advertise on the show, a great deal on sponsorships. We'll hook you right up with that. Remote Africa from On a Move. Then we had in the earlier show Alan G. Parker, who killed Nancy. Death of Sid, which is, but interesting. A little theme throughout the two shows. CBG was right around the corner from Yippie headquarters at 9 Bleecker Street, and it was at 9 Bleecker Street, Yippie headquarters, where I first met Move. I guess it was about 1979 or 1980 when I met the group Move. We had written in Yipster Times, Overthrow magazine had written an article about Move and the attack over there at the first attack in 1978. And they had come down to visit, and I guess those folks that we met there in New York City later on probably were the ones who died in the bombing on Osage Avenue. So another small world here at the Opperman Report. What a long, strange trip it's been. Well, anyway, what are you going to do, right? If you like the show, remember OppermanReport.com. That's where the member section is. A lot of great new content added all the time. You can become a member. That's what supports the show. I need about 4 memberships. Okay, out of the 100,000, 500,000 people listen to this show, I need 4 memberships to get us through the month. $60, I'll give you 13 months. Okay, so if you enjoy the show, you get a membership on top. You get some content to listen to. If everybody who emailed me about this show in a month send $10, we'd have more than enough to support, or even $1. Because this month we only need a couple $100, man. If everybody who emails me in a week sent $1. Okay, all these urgent emails you guys send me. Ed, what do you think about this? What do you think about it? It's 200 messages a day on YouTube. Just YouTube alone. I got to filter through that crap, all those comments and stuff like that. So I know people listen to the show. And if you want to keep it on the air, we got to support through the member section. OppermanReport@gmail.com. 13 months for $60. All right, guys. Thank you so much. And thanks to Shane, our I don't remember his thing.